I saw the Eminence and Shadow Gacha game was having a VTuber collab, so I had to try it out next, naturally. Not because I watched Nene, but because I thought it would lead to some funny footage or gameplay interactions. And after playing about 5 hours of the Eminence and Shadow Gacha game, I don't know how Nene feels normal in this ludicrous game. Eminence and Shadow is a game and series that saw Beater Kirito and decided to pursue it to the logical and comical extreme to the point I can't take this game seriously. In a game where the main character is named Shadow and his victory pose looks like the stereotypical Chuny pose or Gladion from Pokemon, I can't help but laugh. It's so comically absurd that it circles around to being funny again, but then you read Shadow's dialogue and want to slam his head into a wall because he's so edgy and quirky that it feels like he was created by an edgy 14-year-old. And then you surround him with his Greek alphabet harem or characters like Potato or Skeletal, and I am just left in awe. Who allowed this story to exist with character names like that? Who saw Potato and let the author cook with that one? I can live with all the girls being named things like Alpha, Beta, or Epsilon. That's dumb, but fine. It's a choice, but it's not on the same level as Potato. And that's not getting into the story that sure exists in the way to make me as bored as possible. Shadow and his shadows, the girls named after the Greek alphabet, are hunting the Cult of Diablos. Another name that is just wow. But I'm sure it'll at least look cool once Shadow has cooler looking powers beyond just his edgy sword. I'm sure this would all be more enjoyable if they just played the anime scenes as cutscenes instead of stitching them together with text boxes. The moments where they are the cutscenes look pretty good, but the inherent absurdity of this world takes me out of the story, and I don't think I'll ever be able to recover from that. Now, I'm sure it sounds like I hate this game, but let's talk about the gameplay to hopefully salvage some of my opinion. The gameplay loop of Eminence and Shadow is actually pretty polished for the type of game it is. It's auto-battling with skills and a combo move to take advantage of several buffs to give that extra edge in combat. The lineup is oriented with a tank character in front, some attackers in the middle, and support characters in the back. A pretty typical lineup, but one that doesn't restrict combat like with Tact. The battles consist of waves of enemies that have to be defeated within a certain time, usually about a minute, which is a nice amount of time without feeling like I'm trapped in a single level for an entire hour. Or after the not with levels I played, it took a fraction of that minute, but it's nice to have that buffer. There's also the option to run a full auto battle at 2 times speed where you can just sit back and let the game play itself. And improving upon the skip functions in Code Geass Lost Stories, Eminence and Shadow has what it calls the Shadow Skip that unlocks once the level has been 3-starred. Instead of needing skip tickets, you just consume the stand and need to clear the level and skip it while still getting all the rewards. So as long as you have stamina, you can burn it all pretty quickly. I actually really like this mechanic for daily farming because of the efficiency of it all at a healthy cost. You can farm for the enhancement equipment without spending all the time watching the game auto battle. Speaking of enhancement, character growth in this game bears a striking resemblance to Precones. You level your characters up, then ascend them to higher rarities, in this case SS++. But you also have to farm for equipment for the characters that boost their stats. The only issue I ran into was that I wasn't quite sure what was blocking my characters from being leveled up. They had a max level noted, but I couldn't figure out how to raise it until at some point it just decided it wanted to let me go up. My assumption was that it was based on my level as a player, but I couldn't find the information to confirm that. But I will give credit to Eminence and Shadow that it's a very easily accessible and well-organized help section, even if some of it is just things like, once all enemies' health reaches 0, the battle is won. In terms of gameplay difficulty, I wasn't expecting to hit a barrier within the second chapter. I reached a battle that was several hundred points above my best team, so I had to farm for that, which isn't really a bad thing, but when I couldn't really understand why I was being level capped, I just farmed equipment and stuff, and eventually I could level up my characters and went, okay, that's fine, I guess. But now with the characters, let's turn to the gacha system for Eminence and Shadow. It is basically the same as every other gacha system rate-wise. In this case, if you do 200 pulls, then you can get a free copy of the focus unit, which is nice if a bit expensive. The gacha pulls in full is a fight between 2 characters, which is a cool concept, albeit a little cruel in the situation of you pulling for a specific character. Most of the lower rarity matchups I don't care about, but if Nene was paired against Sid and I pulled Sid, I might throw my phone against a wall. Showing me the possibility of getting a character I want and then not getting them is a bit too cruel in my opinion. But in my time playing, I didn't actually encounter a situation like that because I never got any of the focus characters. Which brings me to the characters of the game and the overall art style, which are not my favorite. I think a gacha game is really dependent on how interesting the characters look, and none of the characters in Eminence really drew my attention. I returned to games like Genshin Impact or Honkai Star Rail because Hoyoverse has a grip on making some truly incredible character designs, whereas with Eminence I never really felt particularly drawn to any character, which would hamper my own personal long-term enjoyment of the game a lot. The designs aren't the worst, but they suffer from being boring. There aren't really any incredibly distinct traits that draw me to pull for someone. They just kind of exist. But Eminence is at least kind enough to allow you to focus on the characters you like. When you pull a duplicate of a character, you get a universal shard that can be traded for shards to limit break a specific character. If you loathe Sid like I do, you can at least take comfort in the dupes you pull of him to use those shards to ascend a character you actually like. And finally, my overall review for Eminence in Shadow, the gacha game. And honestly, as a game, independent of the Eminence and Shadow tie-in, it's pretty solid and polished. The gameplay is streamlined and refined while still operating some depth and customizability. The auto battling features are genuinely pretty good, and I love the shadow skip feature a lot, and I wish other games did that. My biggest problem and detriment to the Eminence and Shadow gacha game is that it is a gacha game for Eminence and Shadow, a series that is both utterly absurd and yet incredibly uninteresting visually. The world and characters are laughable in that I genuinely don't understand how it exists in its current form, while the character designs just do nothing for me personally, and I think would hamper my enjoyment playing this game for a long period of time. So my overall recommendation is, if you purely care about gameplay or really like Eminence and Shadow, give it a shot. But if you care about character art, play a different game, unless you like Eminence and Shadow. Because there are games with better character designs and less insufferably edgy main characters. But playing this did make me think that I could maybe give the anime a shot.